Welcome in, everybody. Midnight Madness. We're back here for full-time fantasy. My name is Billy. I'm your host. We're going to be reviewing the Week 10 injury reports and designations. Waiting on the Shefty bombs. Haven't seen a lot of the Shefty bombs come down yet. We have had one with Brandon Cooks, who is expected to be playing tomorrow versus New York. He made the trip, is expected to play. That's the only Shefty bomb we've seen so far tonight. So let's, in the meantime, while we're waiting on those, let's just run through the positional list, and then I'll get into your start-sit questions. Matt Stafford's doubtful for the Rams. They're preparing to start John Wolford in his start that he did in 2020, also versus Arizona. He had 200 yards interception, but we did have a fumble by Cam Akers on like the 2-yard line that game as well, so that could have changed his quarterback scoring. But Kyler Murray is also a game time decision, is looking doubtful at this point or unlikely to play, but is a true game time decision. So that would be Colt McCoy inside of his place there. So we would have both backups facing off against each other. For those of you who have not seen my tweet yet, I just tweeted out, I'm in my home league. A gentleman has both Stafford and Kyler, and I just made 2 trades tonight on the final night of the deadline, and it cleared up 4 spots on my bench, and I added 4 quarterbacks and then dropped my kicker in the meantime, who is doubtful, Prater, and I ended up adding another kicker, a quarterback. So 5 quarterbacks. He's going to wake up in the morning, and all he's going to see is Colt McCoy and Wolford as his options to start. Then I'll go ahead and drop those as soon as game time start and pick up some dart throws inside the league. So always a fun way to get back at your friends inside your league, to give them a little block when you have the ability to. Everyone is having a good laugh right now inside the league. Nonetheless, Josh Allen, no one truly knows if he's playing or not playing. They say likely to play tomorrow. They did not elevate a quarterback from the practice squad, so this is a good sign for Josh Allen. At the very least, he's going to be active. So if we saw a quarterback activated from or elevated from the practice squad, I would have more concerns. But as of right now, it appears that Allen is on track to play tomorrow. Ryan Tannehill is likely to play tomorrow, which is good news for the Titans because Malik Willis only completed 5 passes last week for like 80 yards. So offense just looks stagnant. The passing game, they're relying so much on Derrick Henry in the run game. And in my opinion, Henry does not look healthy. He was coming out at key moments during that game where he should have been on the field. Probably that foot that we've seen him nursing as well. So playing through it at the moment, but that would be something to keep an eye out on with his Derrick Henry in that foot, because he should have been in that game more than he was. If he was fully 100%, more than likely would have been playing. Running back position, Elijah Mitchell was activated by the 49ers, going to be playing behind Christian McCaffrey. I think that role is to be determined, but I would be surprised if it was anywhere over 20%, quite frankly, just seeing that it's his first week back and how well Christian McCaffrey has been playing for this offense. You don't trade away that type of draft capital to activate Elijah Mitchell and play him any significant share. So I think if you have an Elijah Mitchell share on your rosters, I would be very hesitant to play him unless you're in absolute desperation mode. And even then, I would be looking at the waiver wire because you could probably find better options that are going to see some more significant snap share on the field. Jonathan Taylor's playing tomorrow. Deion Jackson was ruled out against Las Vegas. Aaron Jones is playing tomorrow. Practiced all week, so that's good news for Aaron Jones. We thought that he may have missed this week because of that injury, but good news for the Packers. Because they have a few other players that we'll get to later that are not going to be on the field. Zeke right now, Elliott likely to miss Week 10. Again, they haven't announced it, but you look at practice squad moves, and they brought up Quadri Allison, who's activated for the game. And so whenever you see this, when they activate someone off the practice squad, it's a telegraph to let us know, at least to get your guard up, that Zeke is most likely not playing tomorrow. And in my opinion, even in a tough matchup, that makes Pollard a back-end RB1. So we've seen the game-breaking ability that Pollard has when he's given an every-down role, and we're going to see that again probably this week here as well. Kyron Williams, briefly talked about him earlier, but he was activated off the IR for the Rams. They waived Malcolm Brown. Let's see how this plays out, but in my opinion, he has the most upside of the group. We've seen what Cam Akers has been doing. still not probably 100% with the coaching staff. Gerald Henderson still hasn't looked, himself this year. This backfield has been kind of a mess. So Kyron Williams was a player they went out and targeted in the draft. Got hurt in week 1, who's shaping up to be a pretty big role out of the gate. So would not be surprised if Kyron Williams, led the backfield in catches, especially with Wolford in there, who's going to be dumping off to the backs a bit. So Kyron Williams is someone that I'd be interested in starting in desperation mode if you have him. I'd definitely be playing him ahead of someone like Elijah Mitchell, who we mentioned earlier. So I'd be making sure that I go to my waiver wires and seeing if he's available, because it's very well possible that he could take this job and run away with it here in the near future. So if Kyron Williams on your waiver wire, he should not be, but if he is on your waiver wire, I'd be looking at him. Already mentioned Deion Jackson out versus Las Vegas. Next is J.D. McKissick out second week with a neck injury. Even in a tough matchup, I think that boosts the potential outcome for Antonio Gibson, forces him into more of a third down role, which is, more to his skill set. And they're going to continue to use the plotter, Brian Robinson, on 1 and 2 downs and mix in Gibson here, and I think we can all agree that the offense is more explosive when Gibson is on the field. So it's nice to see him finally be utilized in a capacity that is conducive to his skill set. I'm very excited that he is now being used properly. Mark Ingram out versus Pittsburgh, doesn't change much in that backfield. Jerick McKinnon is questionable with a hamstring injury. It'll be interesting to see how this backfield breaks down, because McKinnon was getting quite a bit of snaps back there. He was constantly finishing between running back 35 and running back 40 on a week-to-week basis. So see if that goes to Pacheco, see if that work goes to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It'd be interesting to see that breakdown. So something to monitor this week and something for us to keep our eyes out for week 11. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Jahan Dotson expected to play versus the Eagles in his first game back from that hamstring injury. Brandon Cooks, I mentioned earlier from the Shefty Bomb, is expected to play. He made the trip to New York. Nico Collins treading towards playing week 10 against the Giants with the groin injury. So that gives them both their receivers back. So if you were counting on somebody like Dorsett last week who had a pretty good game, or if you were going real deep with Chris Moore, those two players are not as good of starts as they would have been last week, and quite frankly now are the wide receiver 3 in a low volume offense. I'd be looking elsewhere if you can. McCole Hardman is out this week versus Jacksonville with an abdomen injury. Man, say that 10 times. I think this is going to open up the gate for Tony. It's going to kind of slide into that Hardman role. We expected reduced snaps from Hardman the last couple weeks, and he has been kind of working on a limited snap count, but he's been highly efficient with those snaps. So with him out, I think that opens the door for a little bit more Tony this week, and probably some other plays for the other receivers as well. KJ Hamler is out this week versus Tennessee with a hamstring injury. Josh Reynolds out this week versus Chicago with a back injury. Kenny Golladay is likely to play, first game back since week 4 with an ankle injury. I don't know if even he's on the field, how much impact is he going to have? But it is nice for them to have another weapon on the field, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. But Houston has a pretty strong secondary, so it's going to be a tough matchup for Kenny Golladay. Treylon Burks expected to play tomorrow, first game back since week 4, ever since he injured that toe injury. Again, we get Ryan Tannehill as well, so the two in tandem are great for the Tennessee Titans. They can probably get some of that workload off of Derrick Henry. So I would expect them to ease him into things. I don't think he's going to come out and see 85% snaps or anything, but he will be on the field and be active, which will help alleviate some of this offense and at least some of that burden on Henry in the run game. Keenan Allen and Mike Will are both still out. This just kind of reinforces Palmer as a high-end to mid-range wide receiver 2. It also makes DeAndre Carter interesting in deeper leagues as well. So also Everett is also in play again at the tight end position, even though he drops the ball pretty frequently. But something to keep an eye out is the usage there at tight end, and if they continue to go to him with the drops that he has had. But again, this, if anything, we're just going to see another pretty heavily scripted game for Eckler as well. Renfro out and on IR, which opens up the gate for Mac Hollins. So deep leagues, Mac Hollins is definitely in play for the next few weeks. Gage is out. It's been pretty much out all year. Romeo Dobbs is out with an ankle injury. That just kind of cements Alan Lazard's role in this offense, and I know Alan Lazard has been vanilla for most people, but he is actually technically the wide receiver 19 in fantasy points per game right now. So he's been pretty active, or pretty efficient with the role that he has received in Green Bay as the wide receiver 1 in the absence of Devontae Adams. Jarvis Landry is back in, first game since week 4 as well. This offense is playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are bottom of the league in against their secondary's bottom of the league against points to wide receivers, and they also just lost their safety as well for this game. They do get TJ Watt back, which will help at least the front get some pressure, but their secondary took another hit today with that absence. Christian Watson is in tomorrow, cleared a concussion protocol, but we have seen just kind of a slurry of injuries that consistently keep popping up for Watson. If he can stay on the field, he has the talent to succeed, but just being able to get on the field and get that repetition and gain the trust of Rodgers is probably his biggest thing as of right now. I see the questions kind of piling in there, so I'm going to finish tight ends, and then we're just going to hammer through all the questions. So bear with me. I'm going to get to those very, very shortly. Tight end position, Evan Ingram is in after exiting last week with a back injury. David Njoku was ruled out with an ankle injury, so we get another week of Harrison Bryant. Jelani Woods was ruled out with a shoulder injury, and Mo Alley Cox is also questionable with an ankle, but did get in a limited practice on Friday. So we do expect Mo Alley Cox to play, so we'll probably see a little bit more usage from 2 tight end sets with Cox and Granson. So remember, Granson went to, I think, high school with Sam Ehlinger. So those two do have a connection together. And lastly, Waller to IR, re-aggravated that hamstring. So let's go ahead, hop into the chat here. We have quite a bit in here, so that way we can get some of those answered. Let's take a look at the first one. Donald Arnold, man, that's a tough one. 12-team half PPR, need 1 running back. Rashad White. I think you meant Kyron Williams, not Karen. I think that's Kyron Williams, Pacheco, or Gainwell. I'm probably leaning Rashad White here. If you want to gamble and go for upside, I would say go ahead and throw in Kyron Williams. You also may want to wait if you can and see what happens with the news tomorrow morning with Jerick McKinnon. Again, he's questionable as of now. We have not seen any news reports from Shefty tonight on his status, but once we have a little bit more information in the morning on Jerick McKinnon, if Jerick McKinnon is out, I would probably lean with Pacheco this way because we're going to see some consolidated snaps between him and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So as of right now, I lean Rashad White. If McKinnon's out, I lean to Pacheco. If you feel like rolling the dice and kind of shooting for upside, I think the highest upside of all these people here is going to be Kyron Williams in this offense, especially if they decide to lean on him early and often. So that's kind of how I break that down. Not quite 100% right now, but feel free to ask me in Discord in the morning once we have the inactive lists about an hour and a half before the game. Giselle, welcome to the pod, buddy. Nice to see you in here always. Sounds like me last week. I had to start Pacheco and White. Also had the misfortune of playing against Mixon. Yep, that's a loss. Midnight show, always the best. 1 point PPR. Are you starting Muth or Everett? Everett is higher in my rankings. Muth, I like as better as a talent. Pittsburgh, again, is facing New Orleans, though, and New Orleans is top 2 against the tight end position. They've only allowed 287 yards and 1 touchdown to the position, so I lean Everett here, both from a matchup standpoint as well, even though he also has a tough matchup. He's playing the Niners, but the Niners are at least the 7th best. They've allowed 288 yards in a score, but they have allowed a few more catches to the position. I lean Everett here over Muth. Just because of the matchup and because of the receivers that are out. So no Mike Williams and no Keenan Allen. It's going to consolidate the targets to Palmer, Carter, Everett, and, of course, Eckler. Florosaurus is in the house tonight. What's up, buddy? 1 PPR. Still Jamal over Swift, even with the injury designation removed. And 2 Staley comments. Yeah. Swift is interesting. So I probably lean Swift this week. I think they're both going to be used, but I think that we start to see more of the original more of the original snap share that we saw prior to the injury this week from Swift. Because if you look at snaps last week, it was pretty bad. I mean, Swift was hardly even on the field. So Jamal has, of course, been playing very well in his absence. So I think 24 carries last week. I don't expect him to see that type of volume this week, but I do still expect to see Jamal Williams heavily involved in the red zone. It's a lot closer than people think. I still think that they're both kind of that 18 to 22 range. Quite frankly, you might be comfortable putting Swift at like 16 or 17, but I'm not putting either of them much higher than that. At least the matchup this week is nice. So they're facing Chicago, but how that game script is going to break down, we shall see. I still think that Chicago, I think, is what, 26th. Yeah, 26th versus the run. So we're talking bottom of the barrel defense here versus the run. They've been gashed at times. So I do think that we're going to see both running backs. Swift has the highest upside, of course. I'd lean Swift in this scenario over Jamal Williams this week. It was right last week with Jamal over Swift, but slight change this week with the full practice and the injury designation removed. Now, if for whatever reason we don't see that snap share increase this week, there's something seriously wrong. And whether that's coaching, it's not just the injury, something else is happening if we don't see some increased snap shares from Swift this week. Next question from Giselle. Pick 2, Rachaad White, Dillon, Kareem Hunt, and Herbert. Herbert for sure is going to be in on that mix. Let me pull up my rankings real quick. Not the ones that are submitted to Fantasy Pros, but the ones I work on in the back. So you guys can at least get some up-to-date information on what I'm thinking, at least for those players. It takes me 1 minute to just pull that system up. Running back position. Okay, so the names were Rachaad White, Dillon, Hunt, and Herbert. So White right now I have like mid-30s. Dillon I have like early 30s, but that was kind of anticipating a lesser role for Aaron Jones, who is now removed from the injury report. So I think that's going to move him down to kind of the mid-30s as well. The other two names were Hunt and Herbert. Like I said, Herbert was automatically in for me. Yep, he's in that mid-20 range. They're facing off against the Lions, who are 27th worst defense versus the run. So I was at bottom 5. So yeah, that confirms my belief for Herbert there. And then Hunt is facing off against Miami. Game script should probably favor him as a pass catching back. I have him ranked right now at 29th. So yeah, I'm going to go Herbert and Hunt in this initial preliminary rankings. Again, finalized tomorrow morning, but that shouldn't change much outside the news that we have. So Herbert and Hunt it is for me out of this group. I expect Hunt to get some more passing work against Miami, probably trailing a bit, and I do expect Herbert to get some good run versus the Lions. Sutton, Pickens, or Pittman? Oh, man, these are tough ones. These are coin flips right here. I think I lean Pickens in this scenario. Now he's the wide receiver 2. Pittman has quarterback concerns. Sutton has been underperforming up to date, especially kind of in the last streak. That being said, I would like to kind of also play devil's advocate here and say they get Tennessee, and Tennessee is bottom 4 against bottom 3 against the wide receiver position. So it is very well possible that Sutton could blow up. But New Orleans is also in the bottom 15 against the wide receiver position, and Pickens was performing well as the wide receiver 3, coming off the bye as the wide receiver 2 now. I lean Pickens in this scenario, but it's very close between him and Sutton. Another question from Giselle. Still Rondale and Palmer over Pittman this week? Yes. Yeah, I'm playing both those over Pittman this week. Yeah. 1 point PPR, Singletary or Mooney at flex. I'm going to go with Mooney. Again, Jose, this breaks down to one of my dear friend's sayings, David Hubbard, one of the best fantasy players in the world, in my opinion. Dave's constant saying is never start a part-time running back over a full-time receiver, and Singletary is a part-time running back now. We're expecting more usage from Hines, who's now been on the team for a couple weeks. They still also have Cook on the team, who's seen increased snap shares as well. Mooney has kind of come to light finally in this offense. Fields is the quarterback one over the last 4 weeks. I expect Chicago to play pretty well versus Detroit. Detroit is bottom 4 in the league versus the wide receiver position. Opens up a lot of opportunity for Mooney, who no longer is going to have to see double teams because he also has Claypool now, who's going to be attracting some more players as he kind of stretches the field and can go up and use his body and climb the ladder. So I go Mooney here over Singletary pretty easily. Colt, I think you changed your picture, Colt. It looks different. Swift, Jeff Wilson, Pickens, DPJ, need to have PPR. For me, pretty easily, I'm going to go with Swift and Jeff Wilson here. Matchup wise for Jeff Wilson, again, he's seeing 50+% of snaps in this game. If you really wanted to, you could play Pickens, but I think that Swift is the easy lock in this scenario. Jeff Wilson stepped into an immediate role last week. We talked about this in the podcast. He was stepping into a familiar situation and offense that he was used to running in San Francisco when he joined the Dolphins with McDaniel, and he's been used to running with Mostert, so a lot of familiarity with these two. Jeff Wilson outsnapped Mostert 49 to 47%. I would expect that to be closer to 55 to 45 this week, maybe even the 60 range. Jeff Wilson just has a little bit more complete package, can usually us more in the passing game. And when you look at their matchup this week, they're facing Cleveland. Cleveland is bottom 4 in the league versus or giving up points to running backs. They have given up 820 rushing yards and 10 scores on the ground already. They've given up 255 receiving yards and 2 more scores through the air to running backs. So I think that this is a pretty smash play this week for Jeff Wilson and somebody I'm playing quite a bit in DFS. Take a sip of beer and I'll keep going. All right. 6 buys and injuries. Mac Hollins okay for PPR? Absolutely. Mac Hollins is, I think, a great sneaky play this week, especially in desperation. Also a good DFS play. It's like $4,500 on FanDuel or something like that. So I like Mac Hollins this week. 4 a.m. Shifty Bomb's the best. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty late. I think Shifty Bombs are a little bit late tonight. They're normally coming out right now. That's why I'm doing this podcast. But by the end of it, we might see some more bombs. So let's keep our eyes and ears peeled for the Shifty Bombs. Pick 3 in half PPR. So I only pick 3 out of these 4. Okay, so Olave's in 100%. Judy is in 100%, and I lean Pickens over Sutton. Now, if you have Russell Wilson, you may want to just stack Judy and Sutton with Olave, but Olave to me is in the top 10 this week. As of right now, Olave, Pickens, Judy. If you want to throw Sutton in there, feel free, but I would sit Sutton of this group. This is the quality insight we come. That's right. Here I am. Billy acting like Matumbo with all these bombs. Yeah, you should see the league chat right now. Everyone's cracking up. It looks like he woke up. So people were sending him trade offers and texting him, and he said he would rather lose this week than accept the trade offers. So it looks like he has accepted his fate. I have the option in this league. So this league, players, once they start, they lock, but you can still drop them. So it doesn't lock on your roster. It just locks on the waiver wire. So I could technically drop those players, the quarterbacks that have already started at 10 a.m., and I could pick up any players that I need for the 1 o'clock games. So I can actually pick up Wolford, and I could pick up Colt McCoy, and then I could also pick up, wide receivers and running backs as stashes just in case anything happens. Then I can go through and clean it up next week on the waiver wire. So I still have an option to block him even further as the games kind of unfold tomorrow. So we shall see, though. I think he's accepted his fate that he's losing this week. Do you play Russell Wilson over Geno? In your stardom sit, you have Russ start, Geno sit. But I believe in your preliminary ranks, you had Geno 10 spots ahead of Russ. Yeah, so the Fantasy Pros rankings, which are tied to our site right now, are not finalized. So everyone, I always tell you guys, come see me on Discord with these questions, because if I post them right now, it will be copied, at least to some degree, not 100%, but people will mimic those rankings. That being said, too, you have to understand with rankings. So even though I have Russ as a start and Gino as a sit, it's versus expectation, right? And so Gino let's pull him up real quick. So preliminary rankings, that way I can speak directly to it. Preliminary rankings, I think we're showing Gino as my quarterback 7. Russell was like 17. Russell will be more like 11 or 12 tomorrow. Gino will probably be more like 9 or 10. That being said, when you do the rankings competition, there's also a hedge to it at some point. You don't need to be 12 spots lower on a quarterback when everybody else is only 6 spots lower. So with the rankings contest, there is a bit of strategy involved to how far down you move someone and how far up you move somebody. That being said, I do take a lot more risk than the average analyst and move people up and down significantly more than the average Joe does. But I don't see, much reason to move Geno Smith past 12, and where I wouldn't see any much reason to move Russell Wilson up further than 10. More than likely, they'll both be between that like 10 to 12 range. Once it's finalized tomorrow morning, I shall see, but more than likely, Russell Wilson is inside my top 12 as of tomorrow. Hope that answers that question. So take those rankings with a grain of salt in comparison to actual fantasy points that I think may be scored. Need 2 half PPR, Swift, Sutton, Curtis Samuel, Gallup, Kyron Williams, and Watson. Watson's benched. Swift is in, so there's 1 and 1. Curtis Samuel probably. So they're playing Philadelphia, but Slay is going to be shadowing Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, though, has a pretty good history versus Slay. I think he averages like 12 fantasy points versus Slay. So it's possible that he kind of goes against the grain of the shutdown corner, but that does open up a little bit more play for Curtis Samuel. Probably sees a few more looks. They probably have some more package designed around Curtis Samuel. Again, we have no J.D. McKissick this week. Curtis Samuel's also been a pretty good gadget guy. Has been used at the backfield a bit, been utilized on some Z routes. So I would expect to see a little bit more Curtis Samuel this week. So I'm going to lean Swift and Curtis Samuel pretty easily over Watson and Williams. Sutton, again, has the ability to be number 1 in this list any given week, but that offense hasn't been as great. That being said, they are facing Tennessee, like I said earlier, and they're bottom 3 against the receiver position. So I feel like we're due for a Sutton blow-up week, but it's hard to project him to blow up when he's been as bad as he has been. So safety-wise, I say go with Swift and Samuel. If you absolutely need to hit a home run and like a double and a single aren't going to cut it, then you can go ahead and insert Sutton ahead of Curtis Samuel and hope for the 50-yard touchdown bomb that could possibly happen. But I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to go with Swift and Samuel. Would you start Godwin over Calvin this week? Have CMC and Kenneth already. Godwin is, let's see, my rankings. Bear with me here. I don't know who you're saying Calvin. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out too simultaneously. If you can clarify on that, Dalton, I don't know who you mean Calvin. Godwin, though, just roughly is like wide receiver 20-ish, like 21-ish. If you can just clarify that question, I'll come back to it. Good morning. Yes, it is morning for you. It's night for me still. Thinking of putting Herbert on the bench and starting Garoppolo. Man, I still start Herbert even without the weapons. Jimmy G, to me, he's going to need his playmakers to break tackles and get open. I just don't trust Jimmy G. And I mean, that's coming from the red and gold everywhere as well. Jimmy G just scares me. He's just never consistent. He's good for like 16 to 17 points, where Herbert still has an upside of 30, even with the limited weapons that he has. So I'm gonna say put Herbert in, but they are closer in ranks this week. But I just like Herbert so much more than Jimmy G on any given week, just based upon skill set and based upon the weapons that he has. And he doesn't have a lot of weapons this week right now, like I said, but he still has Eckler. Palmer's still a good receiver. Everett's a good tight end. He still has options, so I still start Herbert. I have Dalvin Cook, Rashad White, Drake, Madison is on the waiver wire. Do I drop one White or Drake for Madison? No, I would not. Drake right now has been the starting running back and has been handling the workload, so I would just leave it as of right now. Bench one, Pittman, Gibson, Ayuk, or McLaurin. This is going to break down to tomorrow. So if... Never mind, Gibson. Never mind. For some reason, I read somebody else's name there. Probably benching Pittman, honestly, of this group. Like I said earlier, Scary Terry has a pretty good history versus Darius Slay. Probably going to be low owned in DFS, so if you wanted to gamble, that's a decent gamble. He's going to be low owned, but just on your roster here, Pittman, the quarterback, Ellinger's just been horrible. JT is healthy. They're probably going to run the ball a little bit more. I like Gibson more in this matchup. Like I said, we have J.D. McKissick out. Ayuk's been fantastic. Terry McLaurin's could blow up anytime. So I sit Pittman. Welcome to the show, Raja. Long term, I traded Cooper for JT. Was that smart? I'm assuming you mean Cooper Kupp. My running backs are Pollard and Carter since Hall is out for the season. I'd want if it's dynasty here. I'll take Cooper Kupp over JT. I mean, Cooper's old though. I probably like JT in dynasty, honestly, and I feel like you could have gotten. I mean, I get what you did here, but your running backs are Pollard and Carter. So you got JT is what I'm assuming here. I think that's good for your team, essentially, with Carter out. I mean, Hall out for the season. I mean, so I think that works for your team. Also need two people's Jones, Ayuk, Zay Jones, Peoples Jones. So I'm starting DPJ and Ayuk of that group. Need one. Sorry. Okay. Starting Ayuk pretty easily. So this was a question that I asked Friday, so yesterday. I had Jeff Ratcliffe on the show from SiriusXM Radio and FTN Network. And I asked if he thought that Foreman was an RB1 the rest of season, because he's been an RB1 for the past few weeks. I think it's hard to put him in as an RB1, but you could say high-end RB2. But yeah, he's a must-start moving forward for rest of season. Rest of season over Pollard. Yes, as of right now, because when Zeke comes back, Pollard's going to be back to his reduced capacity, a reduced snap share, where Foreman's going to continue to see the bulk of the carries. Now, if we found out tomorrow that Zeke was done for the season, I think that changes the discussion, and Pollard is now ahead of Foreman for the rest of the season. But as of today, tonight, 11/12/2022 at 9:36 p.m. Pacific time, Foreman for me, rest of season versus Pollard. Any good streamer tight ends this week? I could pick up Taysom Hill, Moreau, Ingram, Kmet, Otten. I can't believe I'm going to say it. I'd pick up Taysom Hill. I'd gamble with him this week. The secondary for Pittsburgh is horrible. He might actually see some targets this week. So if you want to gamble on anyone, it's Taysom Hill. If you want something a little bit more consistent, I'd go with Foster Moreau. He did change the pick. See, I knew it. Jeff Wilson or Gibson full PPR. It's close, very close. Oh man, very, very, very close. I think Jeff Wilson is like 19. I have Gibson at 20. Coin flip a coin yourself, because it could go either way, but I like them both this week. Like I said, Gibson's going to take on a little bit more of a role. Jeff Wilson gets a smash matchup versus the Cleveland Browns. So I probably lean Wilson, but wouldn't fight you if you picked Gibson. Best replacement for Kyler. 6-point passing touchdown. Lawrence, Dalton, or Wilson. Lawrence pretty easily. That's a high over-under for the week. Love the matchup versus KC. Going to need an update on how the week went in your home league. Okay, yeah, I'll post it on Twitter. Definitely will. I hope I beat him by like 30 points, and then the quarterback would have mattered. That would have been awesome. Definitely thought there was no correlation between start sits and your rankings, but thought I'd check. Yep. Definitely it does matter. Start sits and rankings are slightly different, right? And you look at, there's upside too. Like, so when I look at start sits versus rankings are using more of a mean and average, as well as taking into consideration what each offense and defense is putting up, as well as start sits. But start sits, I also look at upside, where like rankings may not bake in as much upside as a start sit will. So like, I know that the potential, Gino's been playing lights out and probably is the front runner for comeback player of the year, potentially for MVP as well. And it's very hard to sit Gino. That being said, when you're facing a defense like the Tennessee, Titans, who are bottom 3 against the wide receiver position, they are very vulnerable in that aspect. They're bottom 6 versus the quarterback position. The potential for fantasy points with Russell Wilson and the Broncos against them is there. And if I'm shooting for upside, which especially in tournament play, in high stakes, it would be very hard for me to sit Russell Wilson this week. Start Palmer over Fournette this week. Ooh, that's a good one. Fournette in my rankings right now. Man, I just have not liked Fournette's usage. He is playing Seattle, though. Oh, man. Seattle's been better than people think, though. But their running game is vulnerable. I think they're like bottom 10 against the run, but we've seen increased usage from White. I'm going to lean Palmer in this aspect just because he's probably going to see double-digit targets, and Fournette has been conceding snaps to Rachaad White. So lean Palmer. It's a good one, though. It's very close. Drop my running back 5, max 5 running backs in this league on bench. Darrell Henderson for Jalen Warren or Kyron Williams. I would drop Henderson for Jalen Warren. Yep. Dalvin, not Calvin. Okay, let me find your original question. Oh, man. Let me find it. It's back a ways. There it is. So, would you start Godwin over Dalvin Cook this week? Probably not. Let me take a look, though. I'm going to take a look at my rankings. Buffalo's tough. Dalvin plays Buffalo. It's my roughly my 9th ranked running back for the week. Godwin gets Seattle. Seattle's, though, very tough in the secondary. Yeah, I'd probably play Dalvin Cook this week. There you go. Dalvin Cook over Godwin for me. Okay. Yeah, hopefully not Calvin Austin. I was trying to figure out who he meant when he said Calvin. Is it too early to start Kadarius Toney still? Hardman is out. McKinnon might be out. Toney seems Hardman-ish. Yep, I mentioned this in the beginning of the podcast when we talked about the players who were out. I mentioned that Toney probably takes on a little bit more of a snap shared this week with Hardman out. It's that same role to me. That being said, I don't fully trust it. If you're in desperation mode, by all means, go ahead and play it. He was on the field a bit last week, probably gonna be more on the field this week. So if you're desperate, I would go ahead and put Toney in. I'm not comfortable doing it, but by all means, if you have to, go for it. Carr or Brissett, Superflex. Again, Brissett gets Miami. You're gonna be throwing the ball a lot. Carr gets the Colts. Let me pull up my quarterback rankings. There. Let me see. Where's Carr? I think slight lean to Carr. Brissett will probably throw more, though. It gives him an opportunity to surpass him in opportunities. Slight lean Carr over Brissett. Yeah, just answered this one. Dalvin Cook. Will MVS stop completely sucking now that Hardman's out? No, MVS just sucks altogether. He's trash. I told everyone on the podcast beginning of the year, Talked about it in an article. MVS, it's not like he went from Baker Mayfield to, Patrick Mahomes. He went from Aaron Rodgers to Patrick Mahomes. And he went from good Aaron Rodgers to Patrick Mahomes, not bad Aaron Rodgers to Patrick Mahomes. So we never thought that MVS was going to do anything. I talked about all year how much he was overpaid and that they wasted $10 million on him. So, no, MVS is going to continue to suck. He's good for best ball. He'll have his boom-bust weeks, but you can never start him in redraft comfortably. That's right. Smash the like button, everybody. Go ahead and make sure give us a thumbs up. Helps the algorithm for YouTube. Scott says Dalvin 18, Godwin 13. I went Dalvin over Godwin for me just because the secondary in Seattle is tougher. And then from there, half PPR, start Higbee, Taysom Hill or Ingram. Oh, man, bottom of the barrels. Taysom Hill probably over both these guys. I don't like it, though. Question there. Just went to the Opto and look at it for you, okay? That's from the site rankings. In the QB block theory, grab Deshaun now and redraft as the defense in the playoffs. I've been grabbing Deshaun now, especially in leagues that I'm like needy at quarterback, that I don't trust my quarterback on a week-to-week basis. Throw him in there, especially if you have someone like Brissett. You can just bridge all the way to Deshaun. It just makes sense. So, yes, absolutely. Dolchich over Everett. Yes, Dolchich is a tight end 3 since his NFL debut. So I love Dolchich. He's shown a great rapport with Russell Wilson. You are very welcome. Thank you for tuning in. And it looks like we have another one. Cool. The projections of the combo of Jody and Bill or something like that. They're computerized and then adjusted by the staff. So that's kind of how that works. And then that's why Jody and I do our individual ones and post them in the article form to the site. And again, I'll have those updated and posted to the site by like 9-ish in the morning, and then I'll fine-tune them from 9 to 10 in the morning. That's my time. I'll have the first run done actually prior to 6 a.m. because don't forget we have the game across the pond. So I will have the first run done by 6 a.m. Pacific time. I'll have the second run done by 9 a.m. Pacific time, and then I'll have the final run done by 10 a.m. Pacific time. Looks like we have 3 more questions that popped up. Godwin, Davis, or Khalil Herbert. Godwin, pretty easily for me of that group. You are welcome. And a team effort. Yep, it's a team effort on all our part. We have a great staff over at Full Time Fantasy. The team works really well together, tirelessly behind the scenes. And we try to get as much of this content up for you for the weeks to help you win your fantasy football leagues. I hope that my rankings have helped in that regards from the draft rankings and the weekly rankings, and I hope the Discord chat has also serviced you well for your start-sit questions and just any fantasy chat altogether. It's always a pleasure to talk football with you guys. 9 o'clock Pacific, midnight Eastern for Midnight Madness for you on the East Coast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you all back here on Thursday while Jody and I talk about the Week 11 matchups and kind of discuss briefly Thursday Night Football. Hope you all win your fantasy matchups tomorrow, and good luck in any DFS matchups as well. Take care.